G'day guys, Tools20 here and welcome back to Springwood. Super sorry about the lack of Springwood episodes lately. I have had some serious RAM issues to the point where my game wouldn't even load. I could load my game but I couldn't load Springwood, which was devastating. So I was unable to do any building or any updates. I have now actually solved that problem and I will go into how I fixed that a little bit later on in the episode. But before I get into that and all the other updates that I have to mention in this episode, we'll actually show you where we're going to be building today. We're actually going to be finishing off an area where I deleted probably about 2-3 months ago and swore I'd build, but I haven't really. But yeah, this area is going to be mostly commercial, very low commercial, a bit of a train line going through that's going to connect the outer suburbs of Springwood to the downtown area. And there's also going to be another suburb that's going to be situated in the middle of this little area here. So we're going to kick off this time lapse with some good old copy and paste suburbs. This is something that I was using in the last episode a month ago, where basically I've figured out the exact suburb that I want for this area, and now instead of waiting for a suburb to grow by zoning it, I can actually just plop it down using find it and move it and all these different mods that I now use. And now that I've actually got the suburb down, I can just copy and paste it. And this particular suburb, I've actually extended the front yard larger than I think it's like, yeah, the maximum you can go in a zone is four squares, whereas these ones are about 5 or 6, and I've extended them because I wanted the front yards to be a little bit larger than the zone would actually allow me. So it's really useful using Move It to actually use, actually being able to extend the front yard, which is super great. And I've used some different decals to extend the driveways, and I've plopped down a couple of different cars just to, make it look like people are sitting in their driveways and, blah, blah, blah. I do have to admit, it's quite daunting doing commentary by myself. I've been doing commentary with Skibber for the last month on our collaboration series, Osara. If you haven't checked that out, highly recommend going to check that out. But yeah, we've been just building a totally different style of build to anything that we've ever done before and anything that we've really noticed on YouTube, which is super fun, based in the Middle East, and but definitely arguable. It's a country we've basically made up ourselves, and as we're building, people are in the comments have just been giving us feedback and making up all these backstories, all these countries surrounding us, which is super awesome. But part of that series is I've been doing commentary collaboratively with him, which has been taking the pressure off a lot with doing the commentary. So now that I'm back in the driver's seat by myself, it's a little bit daunting, but we'll see how we go. Right here, I'm working on a bit of the road and a park that sits, just opposite the road. I don't put a huge amount of detail into the road networks in Springwood, purely because when I first started Springwood, there wasn't really any tools to do that. So a lot of the city is, lacks a lot of atmosphere with roads. I'll watch a lot of the other YouTubers like Crumbs McGee. He puts heaps of detail into his roads, and they look awesome. But because Springwood is so big, and I've been working it for so long, I haven't really. The roads are kind of just the standard roads. But I'm actually really tempted to do a whole episode where I just go through and update all the road lines and, make intersections a little bit more prettier and put some roundabouts in, and maybe even subscribe to a couple of different traffic mods where I can actually edit how traffic behaves in the city. If you think that's a good idea, please let me know in the comments. I'm very tempted to do that and work around the roads just for one episode or so. So right here I'm detailing this motel that I've plopped down. In this area, motels are going to be a huge feature. I've probably stick down about 4 or 5 in this one suburb. The reason why is because this area that I'm detailing is it's kind of close to the downtown, and also it's situated between the downtown and the freeway that would link a lot of the outer suburbs, regional areas in the Springwood area. And I'd imagine that a lot of people who are coming to Springwood on business or just staying in Springwood would probably choose one of these motels as they jump off a freeway to visit places in Springwood. So I'm kind of like working on these suburbs here, and these motels here, and I'm also drawing a lot of the ideas for the details from a lot of the places in LA. You can see a couple of images here where the areas really, I find it really interesting. It's kind of just a bit dingy and old, and it looks like they probably need a bit of updating. It's the same in Australia. Like, these motels are just trash. I've stayed in a lot of these motels in my life, basically as last resorts when you can't find anywhere else to stay, or it's like 12 o'clock at night and you just need somewhere, and there's got one last room, and you sleep there, and then you leave at like 6 o'clock in the morning, wipe your feet on the way out, that sort of a place. So yeah, I'm using a lot of broken ground decals and trash piles and stuff like that. Definitely not going for 5-star motels around in this area. This whole area isn't particularly financially fantastic. It's a bit run down. I wanted it to look that way because it's a bit of an industrial commercial area. This suburb that is situated in between that you saw me plugging down a little bit earlier is, I don't know, it's probably just I wouldn't say it's anything too flash. I mean, it's pretty close to the downtown. It's the closest suburb to the downtown, but I definitely wouldn't consider it as a as a fantastic place to live. So it's been textured a little bit differently to other suburbs that I've plopped down in Springwood, whereas it's probably not as flash as the other ones. At the moment, I'm plopping down a lot of buildings that are going to make up the commercial area that I've been talking about. This area in particular, I'm really happy with how it turned out. I've chosen buildings that are probably about 4 to 5 long and no more than 2 wide. And the reason why I've done that is a lot of these buildings around here, and I'm again looking at Los Angeles, is they all follow the same sort of structure. They are quite long buildings and quite long and low. So I've been going for that sort of a structure with these sort of areas, and there are exceptions to this rule. So I do plop down a couple of larger buildings, but mostly as the foundation of this area, I am going for long and low and thin. It kind of sounds a bit weird, but yeah, that's kind of like the rule. I feel like every suburb has a rule. I mean, if you look at all suburbs in, just in general, they all sort of follow the same structure. Once you figure out the structure of the suburb, then you kind of, can build on that realism a lot. I kind of go for realism with this city, so that is kind of like my main focus. And because realism is such a huge focus for this city, I do go totally overboard with detail and props and decals and everything that's, detail has to do with it. And I think that, really affects the performance. To be honest, the performance in Springwood isn't actually too bad. And it was really, really bad at one point, and that was actually due to RAM. Now, this gets me into how I fixed the problem that I was having a month ago. Basically, I'm running about 16, or was running about 16 gigabytes of RAM, and as far as I could tell, that was plenty of RAM to run this game. But because I had subscribed to so many assets and mods, which still wasn't much more than anybody else was subscribed to. Like, I think I've got about 1,300, which it's not crazy. It's a lot, but it's not crazy. It couldn't handle it. So, and I think I was actually running quite slow RAM. I'm not a computer guy, so I really don't know. But yeah, I bought 16 gigabytes extra of RAM, and the experience, the performance of my game has changed. It's doubled. It's so much better. For example, when I first load a game, like when I first load Springwood, I'd have to fly around the city just to load it in properly. So I might have to, just for instance, I'd start at one end and I'd hold down forwards and I'd fly over, but it wouldn't fly over. It'd be like, it'd freeze frame. And then 10 seconds later, I'd be like at the end of the city, and it would be like a frame per 10 seconds. And it would be like this for about 20 minutes and slowly warms up. And then eventually it's, kind of going okay, but super choppy. And it's not just Springwood that was affected. I was actually experiencing pretty bad frames in Player Unknown Battlegrounds, and now like that game I run on full graphics and full settings. So I mean, if you're experiencing some really bad performance, just check that out. I'm not a computer guy. I'm definitely not a computer guy, so don't take my advice, but maybe take my advice a little bit. We've pretty much done the general layout of this area. We're about to get into some more detailed areas, but before we do, let's get into some smooth cinematics brought to you by my brand new RAM. So for the last little bit of time, I've just been working on the finer detail of this area. Just here I'm working on detailing this Taco Bell. It's an awesome looking asset, but it comes with these vanilla trees that I don't have vanilla trees in this game anymore, in this city anymore. So I just cover them up with some of the more prettier trees that our fine asset creators give to us on a daily basis. So just covering them up over there. And like I was saying before, I do go into a lot of detail in some areas, and other areas I go into, I might just paint down with a bit of a decal and I'll call it a day. And I do that because, I can't go into too much detail, otherwise I'll hit the prop limit, tomorrow. Right here I'm working on these back streets, and I call them back streets because these streets are a slightly different color to the rest of the streets, and I am working off these streets that we're looking at right now. They're pretty interesting. I call them interesting from a design perspective. They're interesting because they are different structure to the rest of the roads. I kind of feel like they're, makeshift. They're barely used, mostly industrial. I don't know, I'm still a bit sick, so I'm just trying to push through that. And I kind of wanted to achieve a bit of a rundown street look. And I tried using the ploppable decals for this, but none of my ground is level. I mean, that's a really annoying thing that I've done to myself. But instead I ended up painting them down with a decal and then just changing the road to a dirt road, which just changed the texture a little bit, and with the decal on top of it, actually, turned out really awesome, I reckon. So I was actually really happy with how these roads turned out, and definitely going to use that sort of technique in other areas of this city. Over here, I'm putting down this. I'm actually using the pop of the decal, and I don't really mind it kind of not sitting evenly at some points. It does kind of make it look like the ground's a bit broken, which is probably typical of a place like this. None of this area is well maintained, and it's definitely in need of a bit of tender love and care. And so this area here is a bit of a a self-storage area. I've had this asset for ages, been wanting to use it. Finally used it. There's so many assets I have sitting in my collection that I just want to use, and just been waiting for the perfect time to actually use it. While I'm busy building away, I'm actually going to talk about next week's episode because I'm actually super excited to present it. The reason why I'm so excited to present it is it's actually going to be my 20th Springwood episode. I've been building Springwood for a year now. Actually, a year, and this channel's been going for about 6 months. And yeah, I mean, because it's my 20th, and also we're kind of finishing off a particular area. We're finishing off kind of the bulk of Springwood, the bulk of the city. We're going to be heading into some new territory in the next few weeks, which is going to be pretty exciting. What I'm going to do for the 20th episode, next week's episode, is there's not going to be any commentary. It's actually just going to be a bit of a city tour, because I know there's a lot of people who have joined my channel since the very first episode, and the city's changed so much since that first episode. So there's a lot that I would like to talk about, a lot I'd like to present, and a lot that I kind of want to reintroduce to people. And I'm going to invite people to actually name areas of Springwood. So we've already named a few areas in Springwood, and last episode I had some people actually name a couple of suburbs in Springwood, which I'll get to very shortly. So it's really cool that people can contribute like that to this city, and there's actually a lot of names and backstories that people are throwing out there, which I've kept in the comments and in the back of my mind, and I've addressed every now and again, but this is now my chance to actually finally totally address it. So I'm super excited to present this city tour to you guys. So your homework for next week is to find a place in Springwood that you'd like to name, whether it's a beach or a suburb or a tower or a street or an aquarium or a hill or whatever. Like, name it after yourself or name it after something that reminds you of Springwood. Next week, we're going to do a full rundown of every suburb and every neighborhood and everything we've ever built in this city. So really excited to actually do it, and really excited for people to, be reintroduced to areas that they've probably forgotten about, or, people to actually, say, oh, hey, like, I want this aquarium to be named after me, or, this is the Ferris wheel that, blah happened, or something like that, or, something like that, because, there's a lot of people who have been around since day one, and it's really cool to have some things named after them and, make it official in some sort of video. So that's going to be next week. I'm pretty excited to do it, and, stay tuned for some serious cinematics, because I've already started shooting it, and I'm already really impressed. I'm impressed by myself. We're getting into the end of the time lapse. Well, actually, not really the end. We've got about 10 minutes left. But I am going to divert your attention to something that we talked about in the last episode, and that was the train system, because currently we were running a New York style subway. It was actually the New York style of subway, and that was really good. Like, I love that train. It was a beautiful train. But Springwood has taken on more of an LA look these days. Originally it was more New York, but now it's kind of more LA. So I don't know if you're going to be swapping the entire time, but Currently, like, it's more LA, so I kind of wanted a train system that was a bit more that sort of style, but also rocking Springwood's own style. So I put it to the people last episode, and people agreed. They wanted something a little bit different. I ended up going with two different train types. One train type is going to be more of the metro, that's going to be serving the inner city sort of stations. This one's a regional train by Ron Futar. It feels more LA, but it's got its own style. And we're also going to be running the Amcal, which is a bit more of a long distance train. It's going to connect some more of the greater regions of Springwood to the downtown areas. And this model's by Besqueaklehausen, but it's a reskin by Tim the Terrible. I really love the combination here, so I chose this one. I'm really, really stoked to have a new train system, and they look really nice in the actual game, which I'll be showing you a bit more of in the cinematics towards the end, which are slowly but surely creeping on up to us. This last little part of the time lapse is actually my favorite part of the build. I worked on this train line that creeps just in front of this industrial area, and a little bit of commercial too. I really like it. What I really like about it is that this train line is, it's kind of seems a bit dangerous to have this train line so close to the road and without any railings, but I guess as it creeps through this part, it acts more of a bit of a light rail system, and the train would go a little bit slower than usual. And if a car or if somebody needs to use the building that's in front of the train line, they would turn from that main road and just kind of have to wait and judge whether there's going to be a train coming or not. And I really like that aspect of it. And it was, again, basing this off an area that's in LA. I mean, you can see here it's somewhat similar. I couldn't get the road exactly how it was, but I did also want my own little flair to it. If you can call it a flair, it's probably more a bit of laziness, not going into as much detail as I probably could. But yeah, I mean, I really like the way it turned out. And I'm actually working on an area that I built something like this probably about even longer ago, maybe about 10 months ago. And it was so shit when I originally built it. But it's really cool kind of revisiting this area and redeveloping it and making it, probably a bit more modern. I guess I have made it a bit more modern. This whole area in particular is kind of like one of the main roads that heads into the downtown area of Springwood, but this particular road is probably not as, it wouldn't be as touristy as the other parts. This is where a lot of the industrial areas are going to sit, and I haven't built it in this episode, but on the bottom side of this road, if you're looking at the screen, I'm going to be putting in some really large factories, and probably, I don't know, maybe in the next episode, or not next episode, I can't do that, but at some point I'm going to be putting them in. I'm really excited to put some of those in. I want them to be kind of a bit more reminiscent of some of the old factories that sit in New York that, a lot of them are probably abandoned because, and I've spoken about this in a couple of other episodes, but, as cities expand and, areas within the cities become a bit more, expensive in prime real estate, a lot of the factories kind of become abandoned and they get pushed out to the outer regions of the city, and a lot of these factories go abandoned, and then eventually they either get pulled down or they get turned into some really nice apartment block or some trendy cafe or something like that. I know my old neighborhood where I moved there for about 6 years ago, and when I first moved there, was quite a lot of abandoned buildings, and there wasn't a particularly nice place to live. But I moved out of there probably and it was pretty close to the city. I moved out of there probably about a year ago, and the rents just jacked up hugely, and there's coffee shops on every corner and new restaurants, and just because the city expands and all these old places become trendy and up and coming. So, but this area in particular that we're building in, I don't want it to be up and coming. I kind of want it to be in that transition phase where it's larger factories are kind of collapsing and abandoned, and these smaller places are starting to get muscled out by the growing city. But that's about it from my rambles, guys. Thanks for tuning in as always. Sorry again for the lack of episodes of late. We're back on schedule. We are back to releasing all the time, and I'm super excited to bring you the city tour next week, which is definitely happening. If you've enjoyed this video, then definitely leave a thumbs up. That's really encouraging, and it also helps for other people to see the video. I really don't know how YouTube works, but I'm pretty sure if you leave more thumbs up, then it gets featured more often. So definitely do that if it's been helpful or interesting to you. And if you are new to my channel, then subscribing is encouraged and recommended, because that way you can see more of it when I post more regularly, which is usually. Don't forget to comment below and let me know if you would like to name an area after yourself or somebody or something in Springwood for next week. I'll be looking at all of them about midweek to start naming places, so definitely get in quick, and first person to come in and name the tallest building in Springwood, done. Like, that's yours. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for this episode. Thanks a whole bunch, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.